Hi everyone, welcome to my review of The Great Escape in 1963, and of course directed by John Sturges. Here we are with the triple pack. Yes, this is not actually mine, it's my brother's, but yes, I of course watched this tonight. A rewatch, of course, and yes, thought it'd be great to review, of course, and I've seen this now. This is my third watch. I was quite late in watching this film actually for the first time. It was 2014, and I'd heard so much great things about it. This is a top 250 on IMDb, and of course, John Sturges has done, he done many films, of course. His most famous being this, and The Magnificent Seven, and this one, really is overall the most popular. Many people say it's one of the best films ever made, and stuff. But one of the best prison films. The basic plot, of course, centres around. It's very simple, of course. German POW camp in 1943. And it's mainly, Americans and Englishmen, in this camp, and they want to break out. And they plan the escape, and of course, it's a very simple structure of, the planning of the escape, which is a very long part of the film, and then the actual escape itself, through, of course, the tunnels. And then, the last act, last hour really, is them, kind of outside trying to flee and getting chased, kind of on the run, those that do break out. Of course, it's based on facts, but it's not, all entirely true, but that's just the way that cinema works. It made for better cinema in my book. Things like the planes and the bike scene and stuff, which is the most famous of the film. Of course, this is cited for having some of the best action scenes, and just all round great casting. Of course, my thoughts on the film. I absolutely adore it, and this film. If you've not seen it, you have to check it out. Of course, I was going to get the steelbook, but my brother snagged this sort of triple pack here. I've not seen these other films either, A Bridge Too Far, and of course Battle of Britain. It's got great casting in both of these as well. Michael Caine included in both of them. Can't wait to see them. But The Great Escape, I just absolutely adore this film. I watched it, of course, 2014 for the first time. Had been hearing so much great things about it, and I watched it, and it's probably definitely, I think, better than it's made out to be. Even for me, it was that good. I think. It's definitely one of the very best prison films, institution films, kind of breakouts. I think really, yeah, it's not quite as good, for me as the Shawshank Redemption and a couple of, one or two others maybe, institution films. Pure prison drama, pure kind of prison films, I think this is probably just only beaten by, the Shawshank. So that says a lot, because it's many great prison films, of course. They're kind of an ideal way to bring out hope, and just kind of just character studies, kind of chamber box kind of thing, dramas, of course, human studies. And yes, this film, it's very different to say The Shawshank and quite a few other prison films, and it's very much more hopeful, you could say, and kind of the energy of it, the kind of spirit is very unique, of course. And yes, I think this film is a masterpiece, easily. One of my 100 favourite films, no doubt, and I've seen it 3 times now, and it's just better than I remembered even once again. This is just one of my most loved films. What this does is kind of, it blends this kind of charm, this humour, this energy, and all these different characters, with this very, in the end, certainly the final act, very moving, and human kind of tragedy, about these people that didn't make it, of course. The definite facts that are true in this, are the amount of people that actually got away. Not many made it out, of course. Around about 250 in this film, of course. Led by, of course, Richard Attenborough's character of Roger. They kind of dig these tunnels, of course, and there's massive planning that goes into this. Of course, the first half of the film mainly, and of course, yeah, they dig these tunnels. Creating distractions along the way for the Germans, to kind of draw their sight away from the actual main tunnels. And of course, there's loads and loads of tension, especially in the middle. And yeah, 250 are involved mainly, and not many people, actually get out of the tunnels. And then, of course, very few, survive or eventually make it away. So yeah, it's very sad, this film, but it's very kind of charming and upbeat, and kind of it's got loads of comedy in the film. Steve McQueen, of course. This cast, I could name this cast. I would go on forever. Steve McQueen, though, wow, a legendary actor. This is really the film many say kind of launched him into kind of an icon really. I can see why he's just amazing in this film. Really is on fire here. James Coburn, so good. I loved him in this film. I've seen a few films of him now. Of course, Docu Sucker, which was not good. But he is amazing in this film. Of course, Richard Attenborough, it's great to see him here. James Garner, you've got so much famous actors here. Charles Bronson, one of my favourite characters he plays, Danny. He's you could say he's literally maybe the best character, at least the most compelling. Just amazing in this film. Donald Pleasence, it's a massive cast here. One of the best, ensembles really. And of course, the thing that I got drawn straight away into this film. Some great dialogue, of course, and it just draws you into these characters. The comedy, the kind of the way straight away you're involved in little details. The ways that they can escape, and it just draws you in, it gets you invested. Very gradual build up. The first hour is all characters really, you could say, and it's very it doesn't really go straight into the kind of the main events of the film. You could say it's all about the characters, setting the tone of the film. Of course, just very peaceful at first, and just very light-hearted, you could say. All these characters, you get to know them. So many of them, really remarkable. At least 20 people that are kind of really tapped into here, you could say. And of course, Richard Attenborough is just great as the leader of the group. You've got so many great characters here. You get to know them. You get invested. At least I did, through the dialogue. The performances are great. No one is bad in this film, and yeah, it's just so wonderful. The warmth of the film, the heart, and then of course things. They get really intense in that kind of middle segment, and it's genius stuff here. The breakout is one of the most legendary, moments in cinema. It really could not have been better. I think it's one of the very best breakouts. You could say it's the best. Kind of the actual breakout itself could be the best in cinema. Definitely, in terms of an actual traditional breakout, kind of thing. Certainly from prison film, because I think it's better than the Shawshank's breakout, because that's more kind of symbolic as well. That one, it's not entirely a full breakout, you could say. It's more about his time before that, and stuff, and it's very different. But this film, the breakout is so well done, and it's this massive sequence. It goes on for at least 20 minutes, and it's so tense. It's so sustained tension. All the characters, because you know them so well up to this point. You care about them. You're so kind of rooting for them to kind of get out, and there's moments within this kind of breakout where I was literally I was so on the edge of my seat, hoping that none of them got caught, and of course some of them get left behind. Minor spoilers this review, of course. Some of them get left behind, and the rest of the film after that breakout is the remaining kind of people that are on the run. You see if they make it or not. As I say, not many people make this, or at least quite a lot of them do die. So of course, it's very tragic. But it's kind of very hopeful as well. It's a weird kind of mix that just works perfectly. It's very upbeat, even though people were kind of dying quite a lot in the last act, and it kind of ends on a very again jolly and kind of hopeful note, going back to the comedy roots at the beginning. So it's very unique in a prison film. And it's just one of the best, I think, easily into my top 100, as I say. There's just not a single flaw in this film. The way it's directed by John Sturges is absolutely masterful. There's not a single moment where I was not invested. He draws you in very gradually, and then it gets to a point, where it's just constant, kind of entertainment. It's just, there's so much unfolding this. It's just great storytelling. It's the fact that you want to learn more and more about what's going to happen next. Just you're anticipating the next scene, scene after scene, because the narrative is so engaging. The characters, they're kind of subtly built up at first. Most of them, maybe not Steve McQueen. He's very centerpiece and stuff, and very outgoing in that. But basically, very subtle and kind of nuanced at the beginning, and then it's kind of all these characters are, kind of weaved in, all the narratives, the arcs, into this, big film. It's an epic film in length, and I love epics, of course, when they're done well. This is how you do an epic, and it's just amazing that you get this, lengthy kind of build up, to all these characters, because then it means so much more. And of course, very, very emotional for me. Final act of the film. The last hour, of course, people get picked off here and there. It's such a thrilling film. It's basically an adventure film as well. In these moments, of course, the final act, and it's just, I'm not going to say, of course, who dies exactly, but quite a few people do die and get caught once again, and it's so kind of engaging. You're kind of on the edge of your seat, and of course, yeah, it's just a human tragedy. But again, it's very, very hopeful. It really is a tale of hope and kind of spirit in the face of times like this, in the face of the enemy, maybe you could say, and just it's just how they never really gave up in going through their plans, even though they knew, of course, that there's a chance that they would get killed or caught again. It's just amazing. I love, of course, the comedy in the film. Steve McQueen, hilarious, and just kind of very, very laid back performance. You could say kind of like James Dean in many ways, and actors like that. Maybe Marlon Brando a little bit as well. Just a cool character. One that is really, really great. You root for him, and he's just kind of hilarious in the film. Of course, the character of Roger as well, played by Attenborough. It's really, really funny actually. I find him funny in the film, and it's such an amazing film. It shows the humanity, of course, as well. The other side. It's not kind of one-sided in that sense. And of course, there's kind of communication between the sides. And the Germans that are imprisoning them. It's not all just kind of one-sided in that sense. And then of course, the actual breakout, the actual kind of the bike scene, of course, it's just stuff of legends. I think some of the best action. One of the best action scenes of all time for me is that bike chase, of course. It's on all the posters, it's not a spoiler, it's really the famous scene. I think every scene in the film is flawless. I think in the sense of writing, in the sense of the cinematography, of course, it really opens up as well in the final act. The cinematography is wonderful. The Blu-ray transfer is not perfect. I think it definitely could be a better transfer out there. They could make. There is some issues there, and stuff. But I think in terms of the actual cinematography, wonderful stuff here. The editing is just masterful. It really has a wonderful flow. This film just flies by, and it's so sad to see it end. For me so quickly it seems. And of course, I just wanted to see more of these characters. Kind of more of his time in the prison. And it's just. The mark of a great film, of course, as I say, is one that you just want to keep learning more about these characters. You want to see more and more, and you anticipate the next scene and see where the narrative goes. And it's just such a kind of masterful storytelling here. The way the narrative unfolds, it's just so good. It's so absorbing, and of course, there's just many moments as well. In the middle that are kind of very, very kind of relaxed. You could say laid back. It seems, but it's still character development going on constantly in this film. There is still atmosphere building. There is moments in the narrative where it kind of doesn't halt, but it kind of they're just kind of having fun and stuff, and kind of talking together. But it's so well done, and it kind of just adds to the experience. It's so genius in that sense. It's so charming, but yet again it's kind of a tragedy as well. This film, of course, is an absolute masterpiece for me, and of course, you've not even mentioned the music. One of the best scores in cinema, no doubt for me. The theme, of course, legendary. Everyone knows the theme. You've definitely heard it, even if you don't know it's The Great Escape. I'm sure you've heard the theme. It's literally one of the most famous pieces. Elmer Bernstein, absolute legend. He's done many great scores, of course, including, of course, American Werewolf in London. I love that, of course, and yes, this one is his best, probably for me, that I've heard. It's just amazing. It's kind of, again, it's upbeat. It's kind of, it's very, very upbeat and jolly, but it's just really the moments, the emotional moments in the film, in the score, it's just really wonderful as well. It's really beautiful stuff. Just really, really elevates the film, and it's used a lot. You get a lot of the score. The theme is used quite a lot. Certainly in the first 2 hours of the film, it's used a lot. And then it goes to the more emotional and kind of sweeping music, you could say, the parts there in the final act, and it's just genius film, this, and so enjoyable. There's not a moment that I just didn't love. I think it's constant engagement. It's constant, cinema. This is just so joyous, so wonderful to see, and it's very very tragic. It's not a film that doesn't move me. It really moved me in the final act, especially. As I say, not all these characters make it out. Some of them do, of course. I'm not going to say, but you've just got great cast. One of the best ensembles. Perfect casting here. You've just got everything coming together to create one of the greatest films ever made for me. Of course, for me, it gets a full marks, and it's into my top 100. So of course, it gets 100% plus. Tier 1. This film is genius. It's a masterpiece, no doubt. Very very loved film, of course, and I agree. I think actually it's better than some say. I think maybe critically it's a bit snubbed, maybe because it's very very mainstream. Sometimes critics and polls and stuff don't like that, so they don't. And because it's not, its approach is very very just entertainment, you could say. But because of how well it's executed, because of how human it is, and very very moving, and just how compelling it is, the action and everything. I have to say this is a perfect film, and of course it just doesn't. For me, it just doesn't get enough respect. That's what it is, by maybe some critics, because it's so mainstream and everything, and the approach of it, the kind of upbeat feel that it has. But it's just a masterpiece for me. It combines tragedy, human tragedy, with kind of hope and joy, and just kind of the spirit, the energy of it all. All these guys kind of just banding together, and not kind of backing down from trying to get out and trying to get to freedom. It's just a wonderful film. If you've not seen it, highly recommend it. Could not recommend it more. This is a film you have to see. It literally is an absolute masterpiece. Check it out on Blu-ray, although of course for me not the best of Blu-ray transfers. Of course I look forward to watching these films as well. The other two, it's even got Bridge Too Far has actually got Ryan and Neil in the film, so I have to check that out. Of course, and yes. This film is a masterpiece. Would recommend it entirely, and it's just definitely to my top 100. It's a genius film. It's just so much fun, so moving in the end, and it's so involving in this plan, the escape. It's just tension. It's great dialogue. Wonderful action, and of course all these characters. Just so compelling, and it's just an amazing film. Check it out. So yes. Thanks for watching my review.